Hey there, Winnie Anderson here, of course, and we are well into the start of a new year. And one of the questions, concerns, complaints that I hear a lot from friends, colleagues, as well as my own clients has to do with coming up with new content ideas. And people insert eye roll here, right? People just get so frustrated that they've got to create content. It's time consuming. How do I create content? Where do I get these ideas from? My friend, ideas for content are all around you. And in this video, I'm going to share with you some of my best tips on where to find ideas for content that matters to your ideal buyers. You want to create content that is compelling, that is useful, that really does help them understand their problem at a deeper level, understand the impact that problem has on their life, their business, understand why other things they've tried have not solved the problem and what they need to do instead, right? That is really the essence of great content. I call that PIGS. I have done videos on that, on the PIGS formula before. So if you'd like to know more about how to structure your content, say PIGS below, and I'll be happy to give you that link. In this video, though, I want to stay really focused on where to get great ideas and make sure that you're creating content that works. Marketing's job is to actually do the selling for you. It should attract great folks to you, help them understand their problem, the depth of that problem, exactly what I just outlined in PIGS, and how to solve it. And then how to choose among the solution providers, how to make great choices. You know, there's no secret that inflation is really creating pressure on people and on businesses. Yes, we're all still buying what we need to buy, but we're making shifts in where we put our money and how we use the budgets that we have. So your job is to help folks make that best decision. And if you're not the best decision for them, you need to be upfront with that and let them know that maybe now is not the time for them to buy. So then you want to keep in contact with them by having them on your email list. Generating a list is not your first priority. And I have talked about that in videos before too. So if you want to see that video, just say list below and I'll get you that video. So again, let's talk about, I could go off on a million tangents on this topic because I love talking about it, but we're going to stay really focused on where you get great content ideas. You know, you have to create it, right? So suck it up and do it. You want to eventually build your business to the point where you've got folks who do this for you. It does not mean you don't give them guidance. We can talk about that in another video as well, but let's stay focused on creating these ideas. And of course, I have notes. I'm going to be glancing down at them. I have my second monitor over here. So I want to keep an eye on technology and make sure that everything is working a-okay. If you have a question, you want to share a comment, you want to click that link that says Let StreamYard, excuse me, StreamYard, that's the platform I use, have access to your name. That's all you're doing, right? When you click on that link, it means the StreamYard platform will be able to see your name, image, and likeness. And when I'm looking at my StreamYard dashboard, which is what I have right in front of me here on this monitor, then I can see your name. So I don't see your comment along with Facebook member, right? It just helps me know who's here, know who's watching, and who's commenting. So, all right, with that said, we're going to go ahead and we are going to dive in. All right, so I see the technology is working. Awesome. So you want to really start with not thinking about sales. I know that's crazy, but you don't. As soon as you start thinking about I've got to make a sale. I want to write something that's persuasive, that gets people to buy. It's just not going to work. It's the wrong energy for that. And you have the wrong focus. That's what I refer to as ego focus. It's not client focused, which is where you really want to have your attention whenever you're creating content or whenever you're marketing in general. You always want to be client focused. So you really want to think about, what do people most want and need to know? And how you know the answer to that. First of all, you know your buyers really well. You know who has the problem that you solve, and you understand that problem really well. You understand their options for solving the problem, and one of them is doing nothing. So if you don't understand all of the potential options, from reading a book to saying a prayer, wishing and hoping, right? If you don't know all the options that your potential buyers have, then you need to get back to that. You need to focus on that, because that's people are hiring you because you have the answer to their problem. So you've got to understand that really well. So what do people most want and need to know? And what do they need to know in order to choose among the options that they have? And they've got, somebody who's in the personal development space. Let's say somebody wants to address a personal development issue. Well, there's a lot of options. They could read a book. They could go to a big guru event, like a Tony Robbins kind of event, where hundreds of other people are going to be. They could hire a coach. They could hire a therapist. There's plenty of things they could do, right? How do you help them choose, first of all, the best path? Now, if you're a coach, obviously you're a coach because you think coaching is the solution, right? So you want to think about, why do I think coaching is the solution? If you run a small a service business, obviously your service is the answer to a specific set of problems. Whether you're a roofer, a plumber, an attorney, no matter a health provider, whatever it is, obviously you are the solution to a certain set of problems, and you've got to understand those problems very well, along with the options to solve them, as I've said. So what do they need to know in order to choose between those options and among those options? And then you're going to give that to them. Those are all things that you should be talking about. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Winnie, I don't want to tell people that they could do this and they could do that, and because maybe they'll go do this instead of come doing that with me. That's the whole point. You don't want to work with people that you are not the right solution for, right? So you've got to figure out which problem you solve best, who has that problem, and that's who you're talking to. So and that means you're going to have to answer some questions that are fairly thorny. For example, how much is this going to cost me? People want to know how much they need to budget. Give me an example. Way back when I started out in marketing and branding at an agency, I had a job as the content specialist, copywriter, senior copywriter, and brand strategist at a boutique agency. So we did not have any of this kind of information on our website at that time. I don't work there anymore, obviously, so maybe they do by now. But we would get phone calls and people would want to know, how much is this going to cost? Now, of course, the answer is it depends, right? Depends on the scope of the project, depends on what that project is. So there are people who genuinely don't know any idea about how you price your services. They don't know what is a reasonable price to them. So you have to educate them. And for example, a website is a great example. So we at the agency, of course, we used to design, we did total branding, and we would not just do logos and things like that. We would do a complete website rebuild for you, a rebrand. Well, nobody knows how much that's going to cost, right? But for us, there was always a minimum amount that we would charge just because there's a minimum website that we believed that everybody had to have. And you're going to get at least this. So that's going to cost at least that, right? Help people understand this. If they can understand what's the floor, and then they can understand what impacts that price, you can then help them recognize what they need and how that price is going to be impacted by their needs. So if you are not talking about price, it is one way that you can quickly stand out. My cat just woke up. Brace yourselves. I hope she does not start squawking like she does. So you want to think about what do your potential buyers want and need to know in order to make a good decision for them. This also depends on where they are in the buying journey. And I have talked about this before in other videos. So if you want a link to that video, say buying journey, I'll be happy to get you that link as well. I'm also writing a manifesto about this. So if you would like a copy of that when I'm ready, just say manifesto below and I'll get that to you. So think about, right here, more content ideas for you. Think about what mistakes people make in choosing a solution provider, right? My husband is the worst at this. Back in the day, when there was a Yellow Pages, he would open the book, open the Yellow Pages, and he would pick the person, the business, with the biggest ad. I know that sounds laughable, and it was laughable, but his thinking was, first of all, I'm in a hurry. And if you can afford to put a big ad in the Yellow Pages, you must be making money. Well, that just means that they had credit. They could put it on a credit card. I mean, that's just not even a logical answer. But that's, he doesn't know how to buy. He didn't know how to buy whatever it was. He wasn't interested in figuring it out. So that was what he did. Let's face it, there's something called decision fatigue. And people who work hard, my husband has a big job, people who work hard put all their energy into making the decisions that they make. They don't want to have any more agony than they've already got. So they're going to limit their decisions. They're going to do lots of things that don't require a lot of energy and effort on their part. They're going to make things as easy on themselves as possible. Well, this is where you come in. It's why you've got to have great content. So people want to cut to the chase quickly. You want to be able to answer the questions that they have as close to the buying decision as they make. So back to my husband. He would hire these people, and you'll be shocked to hear they often stink, right? He would just hire these terrible, terrible people based on the fact that they had a big Yellow Pages ad. So you need to think about, what do people need to look at in order to make a good decision, right? So when we first moved to where we live now, we needed a plumber. Well, we didn't know anybody to even ask for a recommendation, right? So that's one. People will ask their sphere of influence for a recommendation. So this is why review sites are so powerful, because people trust the word of total strangers over an advertisement. So yes, we know that sometimes, you take all those reviews with a grain of salt, and sometimes they're just not even good for you, but it's one of the things that people will take into consideration. So one idea for you to get content is to go to a review site and look at the kinds of things that people are asking about on those review sites. And then you can write an article about it. So something you can talk about are the common mistakes clients, whoever you're talking to, make when choosing a fill in the blank with your expert title, your business category. This really does work. I had one of my very first clients out on my own. he was looking to have a website. He was looking to do more with digital content. He was looking more to get online, period, and use content because he was working too hard to make sales. So what we did was I created a simple white paper, right? It was like 3 pages long. The big mistakes that businesses make when choosing and using promotional products. He was a promotional product consultant. Now, you can buy them at Staples, right? An off supply store. You can buy promotional products a million places. But he was unique in that he would help you choose the right promotional product. So we wrote that list of mistakes. I couldn't get him to make the whole thing an opt-in. He didn't want a big list. He didn't want a list full of people who were just opting in for the content. So what we did was I had a portion of that was ungated content, was open to the search engines, which was awesome because he needed SEO love as well since it was a new website. People would read the mistakes that were ungated, and they would call him right away. They didn't even read the other ones. So helping people to recognize the mistakes that they could make and what you're going to help them avoid, that's a great piece of content, right? If you've ever heard, I've heard this, if you've ever heard, oh boy, I wish I had met you before I blank, before I spent money on this kind of person who did not help me, or I wish I had met you before I'd gone to 4 other doctors. What do people tell you like that? I wish I had met you before, fill in the blank, and then tell them all the stuff they need to know before they commit to working with whoever, right? What are the 10 mistakes, whatever number, right? The X number of mistakes that you see people making. That's a great piece of content because people don't want to make mistakes, especially in this inflationary, recessionary environment. People do not want to waste money or time. So if you can create a piece of content that shares that, awesome. You could even do it in a video series, right? As you're trying to work it out. Maybe you have 7 mistakes and you're going to release a video that's going to give a mistake per video, right? Sorry, thirsty. Okay, so let me see what else I have down here. So next you want to think about, this is kind of tied to the mistakes, what are people afraid of? This really speaks to that something will go wrong, right? Because that's where we go, right? We make this leap that says, oh, if I commit to this, something is going to go wrong. If I have, right, if you've ever done a kitchen or a bathroom remodel, you know what I'm talking about. Because is there any one of them that ever goes off without a hitch? Unlikely. From they don't order the right amount of materials to somebody gets something wrong, the wrong part comes in. So what are the things that people are afraid of? And then how can they avoid that? Right? So that's a great piece of content. These are all the things that could go wrong with a website rebuild. Here's how to avoid them. Here are the qualifications you need to look for in your next website designer or the next marketing agency that you contract with. So think about that. What are the mistakes? What are people afraid of? What concerns do they have? They're concerned that things won't go right, that this won't actually solve their problem. What fears do they have around that? And then, of course, what if this doesn't work? That is one of the biggest things that people are afraid of. What if this doesn't work? And actually, there's a level of person that I think can actually even self-sabotage. So you might be, they might have hired you, but if they're not doing the things that you need them to do, they're not going to have success with your solution and they'll blame you, right? So you need to create the belief in them that this is a partnership. What do they need to agree to? So that can be a great piece of content. How to help yourself succeed with X. What you need to do before you work with whoever, right? That's actually a great piece of content. The whole before you do X, there's lots of things. I love creating those kinds of content because I love helping people avoid making mistakes. So it's the before you I have a before you write a book program. I have a before you start a podcast program. If you're interested in either one of them, let me know. Um, and so they're awesome, right? They're awesome things. I'm sure you can think of the same thing. Even, I'm thinking about my good friend and physical therapist, right? Before you come to your first physical therapy appointment, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to know. I mean, it saves you time in talking to them, and it also makes them feel more competent themselves because, hey, I'm ready for this, right? Doctors are pretty good at that. Keep in mind that the goal is not, as I said, the goal is not to sell. The goal is to educate. I just saw an article that talked about the most and least trusted professions. And right there near the bottom are salespeople in general. Let's face it, we've all been burnt before by buying something and we feel like we were misled or that we didn't really understand what we were buying. The salesperson didn't do a good job educating us. We didn't do a good job preparing ourselves. We've all got stories like that. So salespeople are among the least trusted people in the world. You want to build a reputation that shows you are not a salesperson, you are a solution provider. And as a matter of fact, if you have a team of salespeople, the first thing I would do is I would change their job title. I used to work in human resources, and I hated people who had sales in their title because nobody wants to talk to you, right? Nobody wants to feel pressured. Nobody wants to have you be unprepared. Biggest complaint about salespeople in general, they're unprepared. So yeah. So if you have a team and you've got salespeople on your team, change their title right now to solution provider. They're going to feel better, and people are actually going to want to talk to them rather than talking to a salesperson. Yeah, I could go off on a tangent about that, and I'm working on something in my head about it. So if that's you, if you have a team of salespeople and you want to talk about how you can help them be more successful, say salespeople below, and I'll get in touch with you and we'll have a chat. Okay, so the goal is not to sell, the goal is to help people decide to buy. So what you want to think about is how can you become the most trusted name in your industry? And you can do that by answering the questions that nobody else is answering. You want to think about, and this is another great source of content, think about what are the questions that you commonly get asked? When just before people sign on the dotted line, what are the questions that seem to hold them back? When you hear no, what's the question in there? Because somebody who says, you know what, this isn't right for me, well, what is right for them? So you want to find the question and create a piece of content that answers those questions. There are frequently asked questions, questions that people should ask you, or SAQ questions, should ask questions, and there are WAQ, the want to ask questions. I've done a video on that too. Let me know if you would like that. Just say questions and I'll get you the link to that. The want to ask questions are the things that people are afraid to ask you. They're embarrassed to ask you. Pricing is one of them. How much is this going to cost? How does this compare with somebody else? They want you to help them say yes to working with you and make sure that it's the right decision. So content created around that is going to help them. So remember that people don't trust salespeople, so you don't want to have sales calls. You want to have solution calls. You want to come up with a name. I call my conversations our next best move. Let's have a chat and discuss your next best move. Because if it's not working with me, I'm going to tell you that. I turn down more people than I work with because I don't want to work with people who aren't a good fit for me and who aren't looking for the solution that I can provide. So you need to make sure that you're answering the elephant that is in the room, and it's that all the things that could possibly go wrong in an engagement. This is so you can also talk about who this is right for and who this is wrong for. And I don't mean wrong like saying this isn't for you if you're a miscreant, if you're a whiner, if you're who's going to self-identify as a whiner? Nobody. So this legitimately tell people, if you don't work with startups, say this is not for you if you are still in startup, and then define startup, because I've worked with people who've been in business for 10 years or more, and they did not have some of the foundational elements that many startup businesses also don't have. So be really clear about who you work best with and who you don't, and stop worrying that you're going to be turning down people. You've got to be confident that you're going to attract and work with those people who are best for you. Okay, so other great ideas for content would be to look at the seasonality of your client's business and then find topics that tie in to that seasonality, right? Fall, the fourth quarter is always about change, evolution. October, you can talk about fears. November, you can talk about giving thanks and celebrating. In the beginning of the year, it's a great time to talk about things that have to do with organization and new starts, things like that. I love to find hooks in the calendar. I also love to find holidays and observances that I can then build content around. October is a big safety month. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but it's also, I think, Fire Prevention Month, and I think it might be Cybersecurity Month. So that's a great way for you to build content, themed content around yourself, your business. You might find that there's no themed content for you, but there might be something similar. So, for example, I have someone I was working with who is a publishing house. She runs a micro publishing house. So we were talking about an idea I had that there's this month-long observation about called something which I will not share. And I said, hey, why don't you do this? She's like, oh my God, I love it. So you can very easily take one idea and just spin it so that it works for you and it's your original idea. So you've got holidays. You've also got newsjacking. Newsjacking is when something happens in the news and you put out a piece of content about it. You see this when there's something in the news and you'll see experts in air quote, that are interviewed on TV and they're commenting about what just happened. Now, I've had people who I have said, hey, this just happened, write an article about this, right? And they've said, oh, I don't want to come across as I'm taking advantage. You're not taking advantage. You're using something that happened as a springboard for ideas and to share your insight. I'll give you an example. So I live near Buffalo, New York, near Niagara Falls. And you probably know that one of the players on the Buffalo Bills had a sudden went into cardiac arrest as the result of your average football hit, right? It wasn't some big dramatic thing, but the poor guy literally dropped dead. He had cardiac arrest and went down right there on the field. He stopped breathing. So this is a great opportunity. I came in and did a video. Maria says that was the first thing that came to mind. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's on so many people's minds, right? It was so shocking to even witness. The guy's 24 years old. What? So I did a video. I just can't, because heart health is something that is a concern of mine. My father died at I think he was 49. have a family history of heart disease, so it's really sensitive to me. I came in and I did a quick video on, hey, here's some tips to manage your heart health. And that was even before they realized that it was just a freak accident. There was nothing he could have done to prepare for that. So, but I still shared content. It's still nice to know, right? So think about that. There's some kind of incident. You can come in and you can talk about it. You can do a live video. You can write an article. It's useful content. You are not taking advantage of anybody. The way I look at it is you have a life preserver, right? You have a life preserver and you're not giving it to people who are drowning. A silly example might be maybe a locksmith, and there's a series of break-ins in homes, right? The locksmith could come and talk about how these people got in and what you could do to make your your doors more secure. I'm making this up, obviously, but so that's how you can take newsjacking and you can really leverage it well. People in branding do this quite a bit whenever a big company comes out with a rebrand or a new logo or something like that. We'll comment on, was that a good rebrand or not, or an effective one? It's just a way for you to take that and think of it as a teaching opportunity, right? I used to be a corporate trainer in my HR days, and we used to call those teachable moments. When something happens, now we're going to use this as an example in the classroom. Think about it the same way. So let's just run through some of these real quick. First of all, there's the seasonality of life and business. Can you build hooks around the seasonality of what you do or with your target audience's business and experience? Super simple to do. Newsjacking, which I just got done talking about, taking something that happens and somehow finding a relationship to your content. Then dealing with the questions that people have that they will never ask you. And there are what I call WAQs, want to ask questions. There are also should ask questions and frequently asked questions. You want to make sure that you're creating content first that is as close to the buying decision as possible. So that means you're going to focus on the kinds of questions about how do I make a choice? What are the mistakes that I could make by making the wrong choice? How can I choose the best person for me? What are the things I need to think about, right? Those are all the kinds of things that you're going to think about, and you're then going to create a piece of content. I love to create things that I call buyer's guides. And that's where you take a bunch of questions and you put them into one document and you help that person then, they opt in for it or whatever. And it is a guide to help them through that decision process. And naturally, then you've shared this information and they're going to consider you, right? So the whole point here is that you want to build trust. People who are the most trustworthy are those who share information, who do not come across as trying to pressure somebody into making a decision. Salespeople in general are the least respected, among the least respected professions. They're in the bottom 1, 2, and 3. So you do not want to be perceived as a salesperson. You want to be perceived as a solution provider. So hope that's helped. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to post. I'm happy to circle back and respond. And if you have any interest in those other videos that I've mentioned, other pieces of content, just respond below and I'll touch back with you and get you the links to those videos. All right, this has been Winnie Anderson. I help service-based businesses attract and work with their best clients, and I help them do that through the use of inbound content and marketing strategies. All right, have a great day. You're very welcome, Maria, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.